Welcome to Weekly Cheats, where after a week of eating clean, it's time to cheat. This video is going to be in the making for a little while, because what we're going to be covering today is how to dry age the perfect steak. All right, all we need are a couple of things. A ribeye roast. You can get whatever grade of beef you want. You can do choice or prime if you want to spring the cash for it. Biggest thing to look for is one that has a pretty good fat cap on the outside, so that after it's dry aged and we're trimming away, we don't have to trim away too much actual meat. From there, a roasting rack, some cheesecloth, and we're just gonna use some paper towels to dab the meat dry. If you have a fridge that you can dedicate to this, you may not care so much for the cheesecloth, but if you have a fridge that's also gonna be shared with just everything else, you wanna wrap this to prevent bacteria getting on this and going off of it on the rest of the stuff in your fridge. So that's what the cheesecloth is for. Get as much of that juice off as we can. Take this and we're just going to roll it up. For the first 7 to 10 days, it's important that you take this out of the fridge and unwrap it and then rewrap it. You can use the same cheesecloth. It'll look nasty after a week or two, or a couple of days actually, because it'll start to soak in that juice. But it's important that you unwrap and rewrap it, because if you don't, what'll happen is the cheesecloth will bond to the meat itself, and you don't want that when you're 2-3 weeks later, however long you're gonna dry age this for. You don't wanna go back to it and not be able to take the cheesecloth off. So each night, just unwrap it, rewrap it, that's all you need to do. And then after about 10 days or so, the meat will start to kind of dry out on the outside and have a shell, and then it's not as imperative that you unwrap and rewrap. Okay, this has been in the fridge for about 3 weeks now. So, like I mentioned, it's good every day roughly to take this off and unwrap it and then rewrap the cheesecloth on it so that it doesn't bond to the meat. As you can see, it's real dark here. And it's dried out, comes off real easy. I haven't unwrapped or rewrapped it for the last couple days because I didn't need to. As you can see, there's some fibers from the cheesecloth on here. Doesn't matter. All this outside is gonna get trimmed away, which is one of the reasons it's good to get as much of a fat cap as you can. We're just gonna shave off a little bit of the edge here so we don't lose as much of the actual meat. So. So as you can see outside, it's very dry, but inside, it's nice and tender. We're gonna trim as little away as we can. As you can see on the edges, there's not a ton that needs to be taken off. Now we're just gonna trim away the edges on these. Just kinda, I like to shave off like as little as I can at a time so I don't waste too much. If your fridge isn't cold enough, you'll cut into your meat and it'll all be like that. More around the fat you notice where there's fat, it's a little bit brown. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's spoiled, but if it's not red in the center, sometimes if your fridge is too warm, the meat will spoil. So that's why it's important to keep it between that, around that 36 degrees. For steaks, I go pretty simple on seasonings. I just have some black pepper that I'm gonna grind myself, some Himalayan pink salt, and then I love Lowry's seasoning salt. So you don't need to go too crazy on this, because what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna teach you guys how to do a reverse sear in the oven. So for those of you that don't have a grill to cook this on, you don't need one. One of the reasons that I like a reverse sear with something this thick is it's hard to cook it all the way through on an open flame or on a pan if you do it like that in your kitchen. And so to make sure that we're not wasting this meat that we've spent 3 weeks or however long you want to dry age it for, it's best to do a reverse sear. If you have a sous vide where you can do it through water immersion, that's great too. The other thing about dry aging meat, a lot of the upscale steakhouses, they'll dry age for 60+ days, some up to 90. They actually cook theirs on a broiler underneath the flame, so the flame stays above and they cook it that way. They'll sous vide them and just have them in hot water in bags that they can just pull out, and then they can throw it in there and just sear the outside, which is basically what we're gonna show you how to do with a reverse sear. With steaks this thick, it's definitely worth getting some seasoning on the outside here. Okay, for reverse sear, I'm gonna put it in the oven at 200 degrees. Basically what I'm trying to do is just keep the temperature low enough that it'll cook the meat to, in my case, I like medium rare. So to roughly 130 degrees internally. I'll use a thermometer because they're so thick. I'll use a thermometer to check the temperature, but it's about an hour. As you can see, the fat has been melting. Much more flammable. And get it about 15 degrees away from its doneness. So if you like medium rare, roughly 15 degrees shy of 130 degrees, because as you sear it, it will increase and continue to cook. So I have a cast iron skillet inside the grill. I've got the grill as hot as it can get. If you're on the stove, you just want to get if you have cast iron, that's preferable. You want to heat it up until it starts smoking. And if you're doing this inside, make sure you have good ventilation because the steaks are going to throw off a lot of smoke and you'll set off your smoke detectors, which is one of the reasons I like to do it on the grill. Not have to worry about that. Throw half a stick of butter on it. All right, so here we have perfect steak. Dry aged, reverse seared, and then pan seared. It's good. It's good, yeah. Oh. I prefer it a little bit more rare, but that's fine. It's still delicious. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up. Let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to see as far as meat, a non-sweet cheat. Thanks for watching.